The story opens with an intimate interview tape in Henry and Claire's home. Love takes center stage as they openly share their journey, struggling with the complexities of Henry's unpredictable time-traveling ability. Henry dives into the process, describing how it effortlessly transports him to unknown moments in the past, naked, leaving him surprised upon awakening. When the couple is asked when they first met, they both laugh and explain that it is complicated because Henry has met her at different times throughout Claire's life. The scene changes, and we are taken back to years before the couple had truly met. Henry works in a library, learning everything he can about the past so he can survive it. One morning, after making it to work on time, he gets questioned by his colleague about all the clothes he leaves around the house. Telling him it was a long story, he goes downstairs to the front desk clerk where he is appointed to help a young red-haired woman find a book. When he goes to speak with her, Claire looks at him and is shocked, recognizing him from 14 years ago when an older version of him had time-traveled and met her when she was very young. Showing him that she knew him by pointing out his birthmarks and scars, she explains that she had never seen him this young before. The two decide to meet up later for drinks and talk about the incident and how she met him. Claire seems excited as she walks away, finally having met the man she had been waiting for. That afternoon, Henry goes home to clean up his messy apartment, making it look as presentable as possible. Henry arrives at the restaurant with flowers and finds Claire already waiting for him. After Claire reveals that he has never brought her flowers before, she surprises him with a small book containing a collection of dates. She explains that each date represents a moment when a different version of Henry had instructed her to be present, ensuring they would always meet. Claire discloses that he has appeared in her past 152 times over the span of 14 years. Adding to his confusion, Claire tells him that the future version of him had told her they would get married. Wanting to know more, Henry asks Claire questions about how they met and their experiences together. The scene changes, and we are taken back to when Claire met Henry for the first time when she was only 6 and had stolen some clothes for him to wear from her father. She had asked him lots of questions about his ability, which he promptly answered. Then he told her that he might disappear in a little bit, asking her to keep clothes under a specific rock for him. Henry then recounts his very first encounter with time travel, an experience that occurred when he was just 7 years old. Henry reveals that the person who aided him on this extraordinary journey was none other than a 28 version of himself that appeared at the same time. The night of Claire and Henry's date was the day Henry had time-traveled back to meet his 7-year-old self. After he had returned, he stumbled on a man and a woman in an alleyway and stole the man's clothes as well as the flower he had given his date just before arriving at the restaurant where Claire was waiting for him. After their date, Henry takes Claire to his apartment and the two spend a passionate time together. Getting up from the bed, she goes into the bathroom and finds women's underwear. Angry, she confronts him about not telling her he had a woman in his life and leaves the apartment. At the same time, a 36-year-old version of Henry appears from the future and watches as Claire walks away after his younger self upsets her. Following her into a bar, 36-year-old Henry apologizes for his stupid younger self and tells her that she was the best thing that ever happened to him, begging her to be patient with him. When he goes out of the bar, he meets his 28-year-old self and warns him not to make stupid decisions with the love of his life. Once his older version has returned, Henry notices something in the alley and goes to check it out. Inside, he is shocked to see his severed feet on the ground. Looking at them intently, he says his usual mantra, "Not today." In the continued interview, where Claire and Henry dive deeper into Henry's extraordinary abilities, they shed light on his remarkable gift of traversing through time, emphasizing that while he possesses the ability to journey anywhere in the timeline, he predominantly remains within his own. Henry had moments where he went back to over and over, unable to help himself. The scene changes and we are taken to when Henry is only 8 and inside a car with his mother. While they're stuck at a red light, a red car slides on the snow, forcing his mother's car to skid forward and crash into a truck in front of them. The large steel sheet it was carrying flies through the windshield and decapitates his mother. Different versions of Henry are placed in different areas of the scene, watching as his younger self sees the horrifying image. An older version of Henry is then transported back to meet 6-year-old Claire yet again, who inquires about his parents. Seeing his face, she asks why he is sad, and he explains that he will tell her when a green man brings her a banana latte. In the future, 28-year-old Henry and 20-year-old Claire are on a train arguing. Angry, she asks him why he wasn't fighting his fate, but he explains that they can't change the future and that he has tried. After asking where they were supposed to have lunch and he shows her the place, she changes their plan and takes him to a different cafe. Just as they sit down, a man painted green serves her a banana latte and tells them he is dressed up for a kids' show. Remembering what he had said when she was young, Claire asks him about his mother. His face contracting with grief, he tells her about his mother, who was an opera singer, and the accident that caused her death. Feeling sorry for him, she holds his hand and asks him to tell her more about himself. Henry explains the hilarious way his father found out about his time-traveling ability when he was caught with two versions of himself pleasuring each other. Feeling relieved to get everything out, Henry continues to tell her about his family and how, throughout the years, he has gotten to know them from a distance by returning to the past countless times. Asking her if they could go for a walk, Henry buys her hot dogs and then reveals the secret that he was the one who trained himself in time traveling. He tells her how every time he appeared in the past, he would find his younger self and show him how to survive by stealing and fighting. The scene changes, and we see a 24-year-old Henry with his 8-year-old version of himself in the streets. The older Henry shows young Henry how to steal without people noticing. Taking him to an art gallery and buying him food, he addresses young Henry's ideas about saving his mother, telling him it can't be done. To prove his point, he predicts that his younger self will run in a certain direction in a few seconds. Although young Henry assures he won't, he sees his mother and rushes over there to embrace her, but she only assumes he has cut class. After an altercation with his mother, 24-year-old Henry had taken his younger self to the bathroom and revealed that they were the same. In their present time, Henry tells Claire that although he had tried to save his mother multiple times, he was never able to change the events. Taking her to his workplace, which was closed since it was a Sunday, Henry showed her the large archive where thousands of books are kept. He then shows her articles and recordings of his mother that he had accumulated over the years and tries to control himself, revealing that when he gets upset about something he remembered, he would sometimes time travel to the event. Henry then tells Claire that he wants her to meet his mother and urges her to tell him a question she would ask his mother if she was there. Once he hears the question, he opens the recording and makes her listen to his mother answering, explaining that whenever he had traveled back in time, he made sure she answered it in her Q&A after the show. As they hear his mother speak, they both tear up from the answer. The scene shifts to another interview, but this time, Claire has aged significantly. She addresses her husband, who she hopes is not watching these over and over again, and tells her to have something better to do. On the tape, she talks about how childhood is all about waiting for some exciting event to happen and mentions that it is an excruciating wait when a person meets their soulmate when they're only 6. The first day she had met him, Henry had told her she would see him again in a few days, and she had counted every single one until it arrived. After the second meeting, Henry had made her write down each day they would be meeting for years, spending as much time with her as possible. Years later, an incident occurred when Henry appeared, but her father and brother were hunting at the time and they accidentally shot him. She had rushed out after hearing him call her name, but she was already gone by the time she appeared, only seeing his blood before it disappeared. After years pass, Claire is now 16. One day, as Henry appears at the designated day, he finds that there are no clothes in the box they're usually kept in. A few seconds later, Claire appears looking beautiful, wearing a short dress and makeup. Telling him that his clothes were scattered all around the place, she announced that he would be getting a piece of clothing every time he took a piece during their game of checkers. After he manages to get all of his clothes, Claire attempts to kiss him, but he holds himself back, telling her to cool down and taking her out for ice cream. The next time he arrives, Claire decides to make him jealous by going to a party instead of meeting him at their spot, leaving him only a sandwich and his clothes. After spending some time at the party, Claire realizes that she would rather spend time with Henry, but when she arrives at the spot, his time has run out. The following time they meet up, he finds Claire in distress. After having a conversation, she begs him to kill a student in her school but doesn't specify why. Trusting her word, he agrees to do it, calling himself from that time and telling him to make sure he has an alibi. Going to the boy's house, Henry kidnaps him and puts him in Claire's car. The two drive off into the woods, and when they arrive at a specific spot, Claire gets out of the car and tells him that she didn't want him to kill the boy, but to hurt him. Taking off her shirt, she shows him the horrible bruises all around her body that she had received from the boy in the trunk, but refrained from mentioning that he had also raped her. She explains that the boy had taken her somewhere the kids went to have sex, but when they got there and she changed her mind, he told her it wasn't fair for him and beat her up. Angry, Henry takes the boy into the woods and ties him up to a tree. In a desperate attempt, the boy tells him that Claire enjoyed their night together and even sent him a text that she enjoyed their night. Screaming, the boy tells him that she likes it rough. Angry at the boy's words, Henry let it slip out that she didn't, and he knew that because he was her husband, shocking Claire. Realizing that his time to leave has come, he gives her a parka that he is sure she would need but is unable to remember why, yet Henry disappears. After he returns to his time, he asks her what she did with the parka he gave her. She explains that the night they took Jason to the woods and he disappeared, she called all of the girls and wrote the abusive stories she and the other girls had experienced on the boy using the marker he had given her, making him her sculpture and starting her artistic journey. Claire met Henry one more time after that when she was 18 before meeting him in the proper timeline when she turned 20. As the scene shifts, a 28-year-old Henry comes over to Claire's house for lunch with her friend. Gomez, one of Claire's best friends, lets him in, giving him an attitude for a reason he can't yet understand. When he goes upstairs, he meets Charisse, Claire's other best friend, and Gomez's girlfriend, and finds Claire attempting to cook. Seeing the disaster, Henry takes charge of the meal. Suddenly, Claire hears the doorbell buzzer ring and goes to answer it. To her surprise, she finds out it was 41-year-old Henry standing on the door. Hurrying back, she calls Henry from her timeline, and they manage to sneak older Henry into her bedroom. The scene changes, and we are taken to when 41-year-old Henry had time jumped to where it was Claire's 18th birthday, and they had met at the clearing. She had left him her father's suit and was dressed in a beautiful dress herself, holding a picnic basket. Laying down a blanket, Claire asks him to sit down, but he is apprehensive as she has now come of age. Claire is upset that it was the last date he dictated to her and explains that she didn't know when she was going to see him again. Looking at her lovingly, he tells her it was going to be 2 years, which shocked her. Henry tells her to live her life, mentioning that the 26-year-old him in her timeline was living his. He tells her that he wants her to experience as much of life as she wants before she meets him. The two embrace and they start passionately kissing. Although Henry refuses to go any further at first, Claire tempts him with her naked body and the two end up sleeping together. Once Henry awakens, he kisses Claire. Time jumps to 2 years later and crashes his 28-year-old self's lunch with Claire and her friends. A year after her 18th birthday, Claire finds herself in bed with Gomez. Quickly getting up, she shakes Gomez awake and tells him to leave because his girlfriend and her best friend, Charisse, would be coming home soon. Going to her kitchen, Claire cries about what she has done to her friend. Coming toward her, Gomez tries to console her, but she explains that she was drunk and what they did was a mistake, assuring him that it would never happen again. Although hurt by what she said, he tells her that he has always been in love with her, but she rejects his advances, explaining that she was in love with someone else. After he leaves and Charisse comes home, she and Claire have wine on the sofa and end up sleeping together as well, following Charisse's advances. Back in the timeline where Henry is 28 and is visited by his 41-year-old self, the trio is hiding in the bedroom and having a conversation. As they're talking, they get a surprising visitor who is Ingrid, Henry's girlfriend from that timeline. Claire offers the blonde woman drinks in the dining area and speaks to her about Henry. After Gomez and Charisse join the mix, Henry opens the door to the kitchen, shocking Claire's friends with the revelation of his older self. Seeing the surprises on their faces, the two Henrys explain their situation. During dinner, the older Henry gives Gomez tips for stocks in the future, explaining that they would be best friends one day. After having lots of drinks, Ingrid notices the way older Henry is looking at her and asks him if she is dead in the future. Explaining that knowing would make her miserable, he urges her to utilize the time she has left just before disappearing into his timeline. Claire is upset that the man she had been consistently seeing has disappeared and hurries to her room. When Henry follows her there, she asks him if she will ever see the Henry that just disappeared. Henry assures her that she will, but tells her that he isn't sure when. Getting up from where she was sitting on the bed, Claire embraces him. The scene shifts to the same recordings of older versions of Henry, explaining how although time travel was a problem when in a relationship, it wouldn't be the only one. The scene changes, and we see a 28-year-old Henry going inside a bar to meet Gomez. Although it seems Gomez is making an effort toward their friendship, Henry makes a slandering comment about him having feelings for his girlfriend, which offends Gomez, making him march out of the bar. The following day, Claire and Henry go down to the town she grew up in to meet her parents. On their way there, Henry gets a call from Gomez, who apologizes for the outburst the previous day. He then offers to tell him where he remembered him from before his official meeting, but he changes his mind when Henry makes an unsavory joke and hangs up. Once Henry and Claire arrive at the house, the couple has an awkward meeting with her family. Claire's father doesn't seem to approve of Henry, which causes a bit of tension during the meal. After lunch, Claire shows him to his room located on the opposite side of hers. Kissing her gently, he asks her to show him hers so he can sneak his way to her in the dark. Once they're in her room, he sees the meadow in which the clearing was located, where Claire had met his older version dozens of times. When he suggests they go down to the clearing and see the place, Claire gets defensive and tells him that it was her and his older version's special place. Upset, he tells her that they are the same person, but Claire knows he has a long way to go before getting there. The two argue about her consistent comparison of him with his older self, as it makes him feel like she doesn't belong to him completely. Holding her close, he tells her that the past and the future didn't matter, and the only thing they needed to focus on was the present. Passion engulfing the two, they start kissing, but they're immediately interrupted by Claire's brother calling out for them to come have lunch. Hoping to freshen up, Henry goes to his room and starts brushing his teeth when he's surprised by Claire's younger sister, Alicia, who shocked him by making it look like had relations with her as well. Henry is saved by Claire, who explains that she had already told her younger sister, who had found out when she was sneaking him into her house. After the stressful encounter, Henry time travels into the future where he lands naked on a biker. After getting into a fight with the man he manages to beat at first, all of his biker friends come out of the bar and start attacking him. Before they could do much damage, Future Gomez arrived and saved his life, having already gotten a tip about what was going to happen. Once he gets the bikers to back off, he takes Henry to a nearby bar and buys him some food. The two share an intimate friendship moment where Henry finally starts warming up to Gomez. Right before he's about to disappear, Gomez tells Henry to jot down a date so Gomez knows to come for him when the time comes. After having to cover for Henry after his disappearance, Alicia comes over and subtly tells her her boyfriend might have returned. Going upstairs, she hears Henry in the shower, who tells her to cover for him a bit longer. Returning to the dining table, she tells her parents that she and Henry had a bit of a disagreement, and he would be arriving shortly. When he does manage to join them, she is shocked by the state he is in. The couple stumble on their words to explain Henry's state, triggered by Claire's insistent brother, which causes her to snap from the stress and walk off. Although Henry and Alicia follow her to her room, they see her run outside after sneaking out through her window. Henry realizes she is going to the clearing looking for his older self. Looking around the room, he sees drawings he had done of the different versions of himself and asks Alika, who was a hairdresser, to cut his hair just like the picture. A little while later, Henry surprises Claire at the clearing, and she is shocked to see that he looked so much like the man she had been missing. Holding him, she apologizes for being hard on him in the past, telling him that she has always been in love with him. Lost in each other's eyes, the two fall into a passionate kiss. The scene then shifts to Henry and Claire sleeping until his abilities are triggered, and he wakes up in the future lying on the floor of his large house. Looking around, he sees a camera set up in front of a desk, clothes folded up on a seat behind it. Picking up a tape, he takes a look at it, but suddenly hears Claire's voice. Before she could come down the stairs, he time traveled back. The scene changes to when Henry was only 16, and his father had caught two of them pleasuring each other. Running downstairs, Henry tries to explain that he isn't gay, but his father doesn't seem to care about that, and is more concerned that he saw two of his sons. Having no other choice but to come clean, Henry explains that he was a time traveler. When his father has a hard time believing him, he convinces him by telling his father about the first time he had kissed his mother and the secret dance he had done from excitement, thinking no one had seen him. In the future, 20-year-old Claire and 28-year-old Henry are planning their upcoming wedding. After his unexpected sleep time travel, Henry seems cranky and is not in the mood to pick items. During the conversation, Henry's father is mentioned, which worsens the mood. That night, while Claire and Henry are asleep, he time travels once again into the future and wakes up in the living room of their large house. He sees Claire on their couch watching their wedding video and wiping her tears. Before he could speak to her, his abilities force him to return to his timeline where it is only 5 weeks left before the wedding. When he arrives, it is already morning and Claire is making breakfast. After making sure he was okay, she asked him to go shower because they were going to be late for lunch with his father. When Claire finally meets Henry's father, Richard, she is delighted to see that he has taken an immediate liking to her. After returning home that night, Henry time travels in his sleep to their future house, but this time, they haven't bought it yet. While they're taking a look around, the older version of him mentions that the lotteries are that night, giving the hidden Henry an idea of what to do. That night, Henry goes to a convenience store and writes down the lottery numbers, then hides it for a different version of him to find. When only 4 weeks are left until the wedding, Henry's anxiety makes him time travel consistently. Going over to his father's house, he asks him to give him some drugs that would mellow him out and keep him from disappearing during his wedding. Although his father suggests he go see a doctor, Henry is scared that they will keep him locked up and experiment on him. In the following days, Henry continues to travel more frequently than ever before. After consistently going to the future and seeing Claire crying, Henry stops telling Claire from his timeline what he was experiencing, suspecting that he died earlier than expected. A few days before the wedding, Claire's family throws a large gathering before the ceremony in an attempt to show off to their friends. During the event, Henry, who is still stressed out about disappearing during the ceremony, gets a call and leaves. Arriving at a sketchy neighborhood, he waits until the man he contacts shows up. Unexpectedly, Gomez also arrives after being urged by Claire to follow her fiancé. After watching him enter Ben's house, who was also a drug dealer, Gomez rushes in and forces the frail man to open his door. Inside, they find Henry's clothes empty and realize he must have time traveled. As they wait for him to return for an entire day, having only 7 hours left until his wedding, Henry experiences repeated travels to the future that are fast and out of control. When he finally lands on a stable future, he sees his future self, and Claire fights and goes inside the house to investigate. After speaking to his older self, he finds out that Claire was pregnant multiple times, but the child always time traveled out of the womb, so Henry had opted to get a vasectomy without telling his wife. Angry at his actions, the 28-year-old version of Henry punches his older self, causing him to travel back to the day of the wedding. When he arrives, his friends realize it was the older version and he is forced to disguise himself by using shoe polish on his hair. During the ceremony, Claire immediately discovers that it wasn't the Henry from her timeline, but goes through it anyway. As the show comes to an end, we see the married couple dancing and singing with their friends and family. In the future, 29-year-old Claire and 28-year-old Henry will be watching the wedding videos together. When young Henry apologizes for the vasectomy, Claire looks at him and tells him it hasn't happened yet.